Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's May 26th, and this will be a special board meeting. Do we have Supervisor
Gould has joined the conference.
Okay, Supervisor Gould, I see that you have joined the conference, so thank you. The Board of Supervisors may by motion recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorney on any item contained within this agenda pursuant to 38-431.03. So the official business to come before the board will be discussion of possible action, an update from the County Public Health Director to the Board of Supervisors regarding recent issues, actions, events, and county responses concerning the COVID-19 and taking any necessary actions based upon the updates. Good morning, Director Burley. I'll turn the floor over to you.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the board, I'll provide an update starting with the testing event results in Lake Havasu City. Anything else? Okay. All right. We did receive 160, let me pull out that information here, vials of remdesivir, which is a drug that's been approved under the emergency order that can be used for COVID-positive patients that are in the ICU. And we have developed a process in which hospitals can request those dosages from us, and we deliver it to the hospital upon request. But they are specifically designed to be used or approved for use with COVID-19 patients that are in the ICU. And at this point, the information that we have shows that there can be improved progress as a result of this drug as far as improvements in their health. So make sure that you have that. So we do have a long-term care facility that's in Bullhead City. And this particular facility has over 10 cases in a specific unit. Currently, the health department is working with the leadership of that particular facility, both corporate and on-site, to address the situation and complete the investigation. The patients are all being tested in this unit. The staff will also be tested in this unit. The facility has made arrangements for that. And our next steps are to meet and communicate with the leadership to talk about really what the next steps will be, and that will be part of our investigative process. Next steps could include additional testing. So that could be other patients, other staff, and other units based on what we learn in the investigation. It could be additional prevention education, talking about donning and doffing of PPE properly, ensuring staff who work with COVID-positive patients are not working with other patients. But these are all recommendations that we provide, as well as through ADHS. They provide these as well, to the organization for them to implement. And keeping in mind, while we always learn about positive cases, we're really a guest, if you will, in these facilities. Facilities' decision whether or not to allow them back into the facility after they've left. But a family can remove a patient from the facility. They basically, unless that person has all their faculties and doesn't have a power of attorney, the person who, let me step back and explain that better. A patient can make that decision. Right. A family member with power of attorney can make that decision.
Like any decision made.
Exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. That is what I want. And, you know, we talked about this over the weekend, and I want to know what the county's policy. So when we're made aware of this, do we have the ability? I mean, it's a delicate situation, I would imagine, because you have a corporation, you have a company. And maybe we don't think, and this has nothing to do with the place, I'm just as overall question. They may not be doing what we believe, what public health believes they should be doing under the circumstances. We can tell them, but we can't force them.
That's correct. They manage the care of those patients, and so our position in that is recommendations.
Right. And we have tests now. How many tests do we have in the county now?
So I believe we have, of the regular tests, we have about 570, give or take. And then of the rapid tests, I'd have to check. We received another shipment last week, and I'm not sure what that shipment was. I know we have approximately 200, but that may not take into consideration that other piece.
Right. And with the rapid test, as I understand it, we probably have spoken about it before, but it gives the positives, but the negatives are 40% false negative.
That's correct.
So you would literally have to do the regular tests on anyone who is negative. So there is some good to it because it identifies the positives right away.
Correct.
But there's still another step involved.
Yes, yes. If we do get a negative test, we will do another specimen and another test, and that test will go down to the state lab for confirmation.
And when you speak to this long-term facility, we can ask them, like, what is their responsibility in reporting? What is any facility's responsibility as soon as they have one, as soon as they have 5?
Well, I mean, certainly that reporting comes to us as far as any kind of positive cases, and then we follow up with that facility. And then beyond that, it's really a notification of family and of staff and the patients themselves as what the status is in that particular facility. And generally it's a decision, a corporate decision or an individual agency decision whether or not they take that any further.
And it's up to the facility or the patient to talk about, I mean, we can't give out the name. We've had this happen before, but,
correct.
you know, it's up to the facility. But, you know, these things have a way of getting out anyway. We know that.
Yes, absolutely.
But we will be there to help them in any way.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Supervisor Johnson.
It's kind of hard to understand what's going on here with this sound system, but you were saying you had 500 tests. Is that 500 tests that the county has?
We have 500 test kits at this point. We received those on Saturday from the state.
And those tests are only used for people that come in that could be COVID positive, not for the hospitals to use?
So these tests can go out to private providers, they can go out to hospitals, they can go out. These are for our distribution out in the community or for our use. It could be both.
Maybe you could tell me again, it's for our use. You said, what about the hospitals? I can't understand because of the
Yes.
echo.
No, I'm sorry. We could give some of these kits out to the hospital. We certainly want to retain some of them because some of these tests will be used for those confirmatory negatives with the rapid test. There are other needs that kind of arise, not commonly, but sometimes throughout a week that we might use a regular test kit for. And then we've been trying to give them to private providers for those elective surgeries, if they're going to be performing elective surgeries out in the community, but they are for distribution, for sure.
So they can be used by the hospitals for elective surgery?
They can, however, the hospitals have their own kits at this point for elective surgeries, is what I've been told from each of the hospitals, is they have enough for their internal use, which includes elective surgeries at the hospital. It includes test kits for their healthcare staff, and it includes any admits.
There have been no positive case results out of Warm or Valley View?
Out of Warm C,
Yes.
We have had positive tests out of Warm C, yes.
Have you? Okay. Do you keep track, people ask me, of, like, say right now, can you tell me how many cases of influenza we have in Mojave County? Do we keep track of that normally?
We do, yes.
All right, is that something that you can get to us? It's a question I keep getting.
I can, yes.
We had the Havasu Blitz, which obviously didn't make any difference because the blitzes don't seem to be doing anything. On tracing, when someone has been in direct contact with another positive case, and are we able to test that person to see if they're positive or only if they show symptoms?
Generally, it's only if they show symptoms. If they've been in close contact, we will ask them to, if they're one of those cases, and as part of our investigation, we will ask them to self-quarantine if they're an individual that's been in close contact and identified as such.
And then we follow up with them on the self-quarantine to release them, okay? Like this long-term care facility in Bullhead City, it's just a little surprising to me. What'd you say, there was 10 cases there that showed up yesterday?
Yes, we have at least 10 cases.
At least 10 cases. Now, I can see if one person comes down with something or two people come down with it. It just seems a little hard for me to believe that 10 or plus people came down at one time. Were these people showing symptoms before, do you know, and they just weren't checking them? Were these people all left in close proximity where it passed through everybody?
I think when it comes to some of the older folks, the symptoms present themselves maybe a little different than what you might see on the CDC's list. For example, what we've noticed is a drop in O2. And if you look at CDC's list of symptoms, that's not listed. But we've asked each of these facilities to monitor a person's health based on their baseline. So how are they normally? And if there's any change in that we're notified and we can assist.
Okay, when somebody looks at putting a loved one inside one of these facilities, obviously they didn't come in with COVID-19. Somebody from the outside had to bring it in. Have we figured out, or are we looking to figure out, who brought it into these facilities or how it was gotten into these facilities?
Yes, and that's part of testing staff, the staff that come in to serve those individuals, yes.
So now that we've had the time in the Kingman facility, have we located the culprit there?
Well, we've tested staff, and we have at least 2 positive staff for this particular facility, and there may be more.
Okay.
And that's part of testing all of the staff that work in that particular unit.
And we've seen a rise in cases over the past week. Is this due to the state mandate that long-term care facilities test their staff and residents?
It is not yet, because we haven't actually received those test results. So when that testing process is complete, we will get all the results from those long-term care facilities, and we will follow up with those cases as well in those facilities. So at this point, I did ask staff to check in and make sure that the testing hasn't been completed, but I don't have the answer to that yet. We haven't received information from ADHS yet.
Okay, it's my understanding from the board meetings that information is supposed to flow through the board first after you do your investigations, and then when you give us an update, it comes to the board first. And our attorneys decided to put that in attorney-client confidentiality because they were worried somebody was going to leak that information, I guess. Why is it that last night I was getting calls from Bullhead City saying that the city manager was involved in our press release prior to me getting any information about the outbreaks that we had?
So I received a call from the emergency manager asking about adding language into the press release. Would we be okay with adding language into the press release which would indicate that the cases were from a long-term care facility as a way to basically express that it was not community spread? Because showing that that huge increase in the number of cases in one day in one community could lead people into thinking that there were other things at play. And so they wanted to basically isolate the where those cases were coming from without identifying the actual agency.
So we have 5 members on a board here that actually oversee the budget and the hiring of all the staff at the health department, who none of the 5 of us put in anything into press releases. But yet, hospitals seem to have an influence on our press releases. Cities seem to have an influence on our press releases. I just have a very big problem with somebody besides this board running and saying what our press releases are going to do. That's all. It's more of a statement than a question. That's all, Madam Chair.
Chairman Bishop, maybe I
Supervisor
can.
Angus, go ahead.
I was involved in that. You know, this happened over a holiday weekend, and I also requested that, if possible, because I didn't even know if we could at the time, designate. I know we couldn't say exactly which one, but it would help my constituents to know when this big number came out that it was confined to a long-term health facility. If we could have had an emergency meeting at 11 o'clock on Sunday night, maybe we could have done that. But I thank Denise for helping us and facilitating that.
Madam Chair, to go along with that, my problem is when the city gets involved in our press releases, and I think that the press release, it was obvious from the age range and the number of people that it came from a long-term care facility, and it should have been in. But this is the first press release we've had that has actually mentioned long-term care. The last time was Kingman, and that was put out by the director of the Kingman facility. It wasn't put out by the county. That's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other comments, questions? Supervisor Gold, do you have any input?
None today, ma'am.
Okay, anything else, Denise?
No, that's all.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll go on to the next item. This is for information only. Acknowledge receipt of the recalculated personal property values of the solar companies operating in Mojave County as a result of the passage of HB 2493. Also acknowledge receipt of the estimated subsequent tax amounts to be refunded to the solar companies operating in Mojave County. Any comments, or Mr. Esplin?
Thank you, Chairman. So just a little background on the litigation that's been going on in this case so that the board is aware. Since tax year 2016, the solar companies in Mojave County, at least those that have been operating in Mojave County, have appealed their tax designations. These are they were essentially assessed valuations by the Department of Revenue. They did that for a number of years. And then in 2018, the Arizona Supreme Court determined that the Arizona Department of Revenue no longer has the authority to, or they never had the authority to essentially assess these properties, these solar businesses. And so as a result, the Arizona Supreme Court remanded it back down to the Superior Court to determine whether the county assessors could then assess them. While that was ongoing, the legislature stepped in, and in 2019, they passed House Bill 2943, and House Bill 2943 resolved the disputes that was going on in those litigations, at least tried to address it. And as a result, it directed the county assessors to value these properties. Our county assessor has done that, and as a result, there will be a refund that will be issued to these solar companies. County Assessor Jeannie Kench is here, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but she knows a lot about House Bill 2493, how we got to that, and I'm sure she can answer any questions. The point that I'm making to you is this. As a result of House Bill 2493, and as part of that, the legislature has made it so that it's retroactive, so the values of this property has to go back. As a result, that's the cause of the refund. The total refund amount to the solar companies in Mojave County comes to $236,000, roughly. And you can see then the Treasurer's Department then has broken down how those tax amounts are to be broken down to each district. Mojave County is part of that. We'll have to refund about $37,000. I think there's also some refunding amounts from the library district, TV district, and a few others. But then otherwise, it's mostly elementary schools, the school districts, the fire districts, Mojave County Community College. They're the ones that are going to be, there's going to be a refund that will be issued to them. Our attorney that is handling this for the county, Roberta Livesay, she instructed us to put this before the board so the board is aware of it. The board does not need to take any action. This is just for your information only. It's the law now. The law has been passed, and this is the amounts that will be refunded to these companies. It is our hope that when we pay these refunds, that then the companies will dismiss the lawsuits and will be done with the litigation. That's at least what our attorney has advised us, is that's kind of the intent of this. Now, keep in mind, this affects all the counties throughout the state, almost all of them. I think it doesn't include all of them. One county has already paid back their refund, Navajo County, and those cases were dismissed after they paid the refund. So all the counties throughout the state are in the process of issuing those refunds, and we're moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Johnson?
So why is it on our agenda not to take action?
Our attorney advised us that we do this, that we instruct the board that this is what is going on, and they move forward, but she also said that no action needs to be taken. We want to make sure that you're fully aware of what's happening. We also want the public to know what is going on too, so they're aware of the legislation that was passed, that it is retroactive, and that refunds will be issued. It's also important to know that, you know, monies will be taken from different accounts. We want to make sure the public is aware that that's going on. We also want to make sure the board is aware of it.
So when will this be coming back to the board?
I don't think it needs to come back to the board.
So we're not going to pay them?
We are. The refunds are going to be issued most likely this week. I've drafted a letter to all the districts so that they are aware that monies will be taken from their accounts, and those monies would then be refunded to the solar businesses.
Did I miss something? This is on the agenda now. Did we settle this before and we've already decided to pay it?
It's not a settlement, and that's what the attorney points out, is that it's not a settlement of the case, it's now the law. Now, the law is being executed, and the assessor is following the House bill that was passed in 2019. Our attorney also wanted to stress out a couple things. One, this is only the principal amount, so there's no interest. They're not paying back interest. Two, there is no attorney's fees that we have to pay in terms of the solar businesses. Again, I think the intent is that once these are paid, that those cases will be dismissed. I don't know if that will happen, but that's what she believes will happen.
So this was put on the agenda just for us to say thanks a lot to the legislature?
I don't know what you want to say thanks. I don't think there's any thanks to give them. I think there's probably the opposite, but she asked that we make sure that the board is aware and that we advise you of the situation.
Anyone else?
I would like to just say that I know that the assessor's office really tried hard to change this, going down and trying to lobby down at the state on our behalf, and I want to thank you for that. But it is what it is. Another case of a state agency telling companies what they need to pay, and then, oops, we made a mistake, and we're left holding the bag, and there's nothing we can do about it. Thank you.
well summarized, Supervisor Angus, that it wasn't a county issue, it was a state issue, just like you said. So I appreciate what the assessor tried to do and your explanation, Attorney Esplin. So if there's no other comments, we'll go on to the next agenda item. This will be a discussion of possible action. Receive an update and legal advice from the Mojave County Attorney's Office concerning the multi-jurisdictional opioid litigation in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Ohio. Further approve attorney-client privileged actions related to the case and authorize the chairman of the Board of Supervisors and legal counsel to participate in settlement discussions and execute documents that further or enable settlement negotiations. Mr. Esplin.
We'd ask that you go into executive session to discuss this matter, so we'll need a motion to go into executive session.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Have everyone who cannot be in executive session go ahead and leave now, and then I have to have them turn off the sound.
Thank you.
Okay. So in the meantime, we can entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll take about a 1-minute break while we remove everyone from the audience and turn off the sound.
Gould.
has left the conference.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Can we leave this book here, Jenny?